Hey everybody, welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about the bells and a lost technology that is associated with some of these bells. So should be interesting, and we might jump around to a few other topics towards the end. Let's get started with these musical instruments called carillons. Now, what is a carillon? As mentioned, it's a giant musical instrument controlled by a keyboard, and it consists of at least 23 bells that are typically at the top of bell towers in churches or universities or even public buildings. It turns out that its origins can be traced to the Low Countries, which would be present-day Belgium, the Netherlands, and the French Netherlands in the 1500s. And it's not until 1644 we're told that you have the first well-tuned carillon by the Hemony brothers. Now, according to the official history, these brothers, they came up with a way of tuning these bells to expand their capabilities and their clarity. But unfortunately, the once prized tuning techniques that were pioneered by these brothers, those techniques were forgotten, only to be resurrected in the early 1900s, to be rediscovered, so we're told. Again, it's a case of lost technology, only to be rediscovered, and we're told this technology was in the hands of a small group of people, in this case, these two brothers. And it's not until 1904 that you had the rediscovery of these techniques of tuning these bells. So we're told that this rediscovery initiated a revival of carillon building. And what I wanted to mention is there is one of these carillons in this tower in the city of Groningen in the Netherlands. And this tower also goes by the nickname of the Martini Tower. This is the site that I point out a lot that had archaeological excavations in this market, where they found buried well amongst a lot of artifacts. And the well seems to show up above ground on maps from the 1600s, but in the background you can see this tower, and there's one of these carillons in this tower as well. Even the people who could play these carillons, apparently by 1895, prior to the rediscovery of the tuning technology, a music publisher pointed out that no caroliners of our time knows how to play them. Maybe they're referring to specific types of music. And looking at some of the buildings that do have these carillons in North America, there's a few interesting ones I'm going to point out. We're told that there was a resurgence of building these carillons in North America as well, and between 1922 and 1940, about 43 of these carillons were installed in the USA and Canada. So I think there's about 12 in Canada. We're told that the popularity was spurred by this book that was written in 1915, as well as some persistent education. One of the buildings I want to point out is one of the Parliament buildings, the Center Block building in Ottawa, Canada, and this Peace Tower. And there's one of these carillons here as well, a 53 bell carillon. And also in Rochester, Minnesota, there's a really impressive building called the Plummer Building, which we're told opened in 1928. It also has one of these carillons. The building also has a lot of interesting elements that I just want to diverge from our topic and kind of focus on some of the elements of this building. The Plummer Building reflects a combination of Romanesque elements and Art Deco details, with the lower two stories being faced with this type of limestone, Bedford limestone. That's also known as Indiana limestone. And it just so happens Indiana limestone is featured prominently amongst a lot of buildings that we sort of question. So some 35 of the 50 state capitol buildings in the United States are made of Indiana limestone, as well as the Empire State Building, Biltmore Estate, and National Cathedral. Again, all structures that are really impressive, and a lot of people are starting to scrutinize a bit more. Even on the outside of this Plummer Building, the use of these gargoyles, grotesques. I think this is a griffin we're looking at, but also on this building you have other designs, such as, I think they said this was an owl. In the middle you have a winged salamander and a hawk. So it's not just that this building has a carillon in it and it's ornate, but it's got these grotesques, these gargoyles. It's just an odd pairing seemingly, because the Parliament buildings that we looked at just previously in Ottawa, and even that Peace Tower, they also have the use of these gargoyles and grotesques. And the use of that Indiana limestone as well. So a lot of similar features. Getting back to that plumber building, again, giant doors. I can't remember if they're 15 or 16 feet tall, but massive doors with really interesting panels. And on the inside of the building, a lot of times these buildings are ornate on the inside as well, and this one is no exception. I think it's in the lobby. They find these bronze medallions inserted into some of the tiles. They depict Apollo, Minerva, Hermes. So when you're looking at a lot of these buildings, the ornate detail lends itself towards these Greek, Roman ideologies, mythologies, and that seems to be pretty consistent. But also in this plumber building, there's a library, and it features some interesting stained glass window panes, which apparently not a lot is known about. Interesting stained glass window panes featuring like Knights Templars, and I think there's some of a jester. Interesting. Just some of the things I wanted to point out. Finishing up with the carillons here, I just wanted to briefly mention the use of these bells and how the technology was lost only to be rediscovered. And we see this a lot in this line of research, and this is just one more thing to put on the list. I thought it was interesting. Now, we briefly touched upon the Dutch because of where the carillon originated, and I think that they were greatly affected, and we're going to jump to a different topic here, but they were greatly affected, in my opinion, by one of the more recent destructive events. And in Virginia, there is a archaeological site of a former plantation. Plantation was known as Iredell, and there was an article talking about a tree being uprooted, and underneath it they found thousands of artifacts, including coins, tokens, tobacco clay pipes, English and German ceramics, and also hundreds of yellow Dutch bricks, more than have been found in all of Virginia, leaving archaeologists scratching their heads about exactly who lived at Iredell and when. So I think the presence of the Dutch was a lot more pervasive than our history maybe is even aware of, because I think that early colonial period ended with some sort of event that, as I say all the time, doesn't seem to be reflected in our history. On this plantation site, this is just one of the features they've uncovered, and it's a yellow Dutch brick feature within the site. Its purpose remains a mystery at this point. And I've talked about other buried Dutch sites like New Amsterdam, which is now New York City. They found traces of walls buried 10 feet deep. And on this plantation site, former plantation site, they found these subsurface features, such as a well was found. And again, going back to that city in the Netherlands, in Groningen, that's one of the features they found buried, a well, but it seems to show up on maps above ground, actually, in the 1600s. So that's something interesting I wanted to point out. Yeah, even the Dutch East India Company, they had a colony, Batavia, present-day Jakarta, and this fortress here, and they've been finding remnants of this, again, significantly buried, and just really interesting. And of course, Australia appears on some maps as New Holland, and I think it just speaks to this period of time where the Dutch had much more influence, and that was interrupted by this event that buried a lot of places, and some places got burned, or both. So I just wanted to finish up with that, and I think that's about all I got for you for today. But I do want to give a big shout out to my channel members. Thank you for all your help and support. Greatly appreciated. As well as my patrons. Thank you as well for all of your help and support. I really do appreciate it. So thanks again. So with that being said, until next time, take care. Bye.